Now we're going to show Neo first. I think his is the most explosive because he's actually sticking to his guns. The other ones, we've got a misunderstanding in there, and then we've got a guy thinking that he did something wrong and apologizing. So we've got all ends of the spectrum for the cancel mob or the cancel culture mafia out here on display. So let's start with Neo. He, of course, is a singer, and if you were, let's say in the clubs in the 2010s or something, Eric, or in the bars of the 2010s, you heard a lot of Neo, you heard a lot of Lady Gaga, a lot of Rihanna's, Pitbull, that sort of stuff. But Neo's, who knows what he's doing now, but he's probably got a lot of money. So his ability to talk about his opinion now is probably escalated to the point where he doesn't really have to care. We'll get to his comments after of him defending himself,
which is pretty sad, by the way, right? Like that's a pretty sad thing. Okay.
So let's hear what you have to say. Actually, you know what? I might have to tease this. Well, we're already demonetized, so within the I was going to say within the first third of a video, the first 10 to 15 minutes usually on YouTube, that's when they say you are more susceptible to things being demonetized. But we're already demonetized, so I think we can talk about Neo talking about child transitioning.
No, let him say it.
Yeah.
Parents have almost forgotten what the role of a parent is.
Amen.
It's like, okay,
lost control.
If your little boy comes to you and says, "Daddy, I want to be a girl," and you just let him rock with that, you just let him.
Right.
He's 5.
Right. And where did he get that from?
If you let this 5-year-old boy decide to eat candy all day, he's going to do that.
Exactly.
Like, when did it become a good idea to let a 5-year-old, let a 6-year-old, let a 12-year-old make a life-changing decision for themselves?
Right.
When did that happen?
Right.
Like, I don't understand that. I don't get that.
And to medicate these young kids that are 5, 6 growing up and knowing that it affects their brain, it affects their organs, it makes them sick, but they're not allowed to do drugs, they're not allowed to do alcohol.
Right.
We can medicate them up.
He can't drive a car yet, but he can decide his sex.
Right, right. What sexual orientation, and he can cut off his pee-pee, and that, to me, that makes no sense whatsoever.
And so I don't know if this is true, but I heard a rumor that they either passed or are trying to pass a law in LA that states if your child comes to you and asks to do some of these things and you say no, they can take your kid from you.
Yeah, that's true. Just passed in California.
That makes no sense.
They want us to have no control over our children.
So I'll pause there and say that this is congruent the right word? This is consistent with what happened in Canada. There is a big story out of British Columbia, the West Coast, where a man didn't agree with his child's gender identity, and he was put in jail for this because he wouldn't conform to it. And of course, California and Canada are pretty close in radical leftism, I would say. Probably goes California, then Canada, then maybe New York right after it, if we're talking about this region of laws. And this was also publicly banned to talk about in the press. You couldn't talk about the story because they had to settle. They have what is a publication ban, and you will see, and especially working in American media myself, you will see that Canadian lawyers, governing bodies, jurisdictions will tell American outlets, hey, we have what's known as a publication ban. And usually that's for the protection of the person involved. But in Canada and other countries, not unlike them, they like to use that as a way to, hey, you can't talk about this because it doesn't look good on the government. And you'll often see American companies, just like they did with the trucker convoy, say, hey, we don't have to follow Canadian laws. The trucker convoy of give, send, go. They want to do the same thing of GoFundMe by stopping them from doing that and giving up their financial information of their donors. Whereas Give, Send, Go is like, no, we're in America. We don't have to follow that. So what she's talking about there and confirming in California is something that's long existed in Canada for at least a couple of years, where it's considered, child abuse to not confirm their pretend gender. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is great. Shout out Gloria Velez, right? I think that's Gloria Velez.
Yes.
Right? In the game, shout her out in one of his early songs. Anyhow, early 2000s video vixen. But besides that, this is great because I love when we see Vlad TV and DJ Academics, right, with Donald Trump. It's like, dog, the population of people that the establishment, that the machine or whatever is really trying to is really trying to still pretend that they have their claws in, they're off the plantation, dog. It's over. You guys lost your death throes. Neo, I don't know, he might be in his early 40s or something. He's not that old, right? Like I think he was singing probably when he was early 20s. Anyways, the point is, it's great that these sort of urban media outlets are discussing this, and it's all just normal. They're not, and we'll see what comes here in the next week or so. But it doesn't look like Neo is gonna be apologizing. It doesn't look like Gloria Velez is gonna be apologizing. So this is great. And I also want to mention that when I do look at the comment sections of like academics or Vlad TV or Cultural Millennials, all these outlets, when you look at their comments on Instagram, hundreds, thousands of comments sometimes of people who actually can see clear through this, but for whatever reason, the media machine is still pretending that, you know, racism, this and homophobia and all this stuff. But it's I think sanity is making a return, however slowly. Actually, it's back. It's the media that is making the return to sanity slowly. Maybe. Like, did you see the story that the New York Times ran last week that said maybe we're the bad guys here?
No,
Yeah.
I did not. Well, let's watch a little bit more of it and
Wait,
see
but
what.
that's also using the assumption that any of it's genuine, right? So if I always have to preface that because they know these are full grown adults. They know what they're doing is completely manipulative and disgusting and trying to ruin these kids' lives. But on the off chance that they are actually having second thoughts, I don't know. Let it continue, I guess.
Children
I don't get it.
in schools,
I don't get it.
hospitals, libraries.
Yeah.
They just want to manipulate. You got to understand when they're so young and they're already that's
Impressionable.
That's right.
Mhm.
And from them, they're going to believe what you say. I mean,
Yeah.
we say Santa Claus is real. You know, the
And they
Easter Bunny.
believe it, like,
right?
come on.
Exactly.
Like, you gotta
they know what they're doing.
Remember who you're dealing with. Like I can't take credit for it, but I heard somebody say one time, he's like, all right, if your son comes to you and says, Daddy, I want to be a girl, ask your son, what is a girl?
That's a good one.
What is he gonna do? He's gonna say, well, he might want to play with dolls. All right, you want to play with dolls? Fine, play with dolls.
Right.
But you're a boy
Right.
playing with dolls.
That's
How long until we get the article of singer Neo parrots racist Matt Walsh's "What is a woman" concept to try to be transphobic or something, you know?
Oh well, they're working on it right now. It's probably going to show up tomorrow morning. It's going to be The Root or something. They're gonna jump
Teen
through
Vogue?
hoops. Yeah, they're gonna jump through hoops. They're gonna twist themselves into a pretzel to make us believe that black man are, you know, quite possibly well off. I mean, I'm not pocket checking Neo, but I assume he's not up, you know, tight financially. Successful black man, successful Latina are far right. I mean, they're gonna do something, right? They're gonna find something. They're gonna find a case of, you know, Neo when he. I mean, who knows? They'll find something like that woman on ESPN who's constantly, I forget her name, but she every time like one of these guys gets drafted or does something amazing or like typically a good story, she delves 15, 16 years ago when they were in high school and you know, oh well, a woman, you know, they'll find something, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. But this is good. This is a step in the right direction, I think. If any of it is real, this is good.
All right, let's watch the rest, and then there's a statement by Neo afterwards.
I want to wear pink. All right, cool, wear pink, but you're a boy.
That's right.
Wearing pink. No issue with the LBGT. I have no problem with with nobody. Okay,
Right.
Love who you love, do what you do.
Exactly.
I just personally come from an era where a man was a man and a woman was a woman, and it wasn't but two genders, and that's just how I rocked.
Me
now,
too.
You could identify as a goldfish if you feel it.
Right.
I don't care. That ain't my business. It becomes my business when you try to make me play the game with you. I'm not finna call you a
Right.
goldfish, but you
Exactly.
want to be a goldfish, you go be a goldfish. It's all good.
Amen.
I mean,
Well
I don't know.
said.
It's just, we live in a weird time, man. We do.
And
Trigger
let's go to the
warnings.
hat-
What the
right.
hell is a trigger warning?
Yes. Exactly.
It's just when I
It
just
is
don't know
weird
when the world
times.
became so sensitive. Like,
Can we? I'll keep pausing.
comedians can't tell jokes no more.
Can we? I love this. I haven't seen this extended version of the clip, but can we take a little bit of credit and just say like we've been saying this for literally years now. Like it's good to see these people slowly come around and get the courage, I guess, now to speak up. But it's like, dude, we've literally been saying this for years now. So shout out to the people who are just showing up.
More
No.
everybody's offended. It's a joke. It's a
Right.
comedian.
Right.
It's a joke. You're not supposed to take it serious. It's a joke.
Right.
His literal job is to joke.
About everyone.
About everyone and
Right.
everything. And people want to get offended and like, don't say that. That's triggering. Oh my God. You know what?
Yeah.
Sit in your house by yourself.
Exactly.
It annoys me. It annoys
I mean,
me.
anything can.
Well, of course, all of that is true, and of course, it takes a simple, common sense explanation from somebody who's in a position of notoriety to point this stuff out, because what happens when you try to point this out to somebody as a layman, let's say? Are you a scientist? If we're talking about pharmaceuticals, are you a biologist? I'm not a biologist. I can't tell you what a woman is. But when somebody sits there who maybe has the respect of a few million people and they say, well, yeah, this is obviously, if they come from a place of sanity, you know what I mean? It's like if you were just in a coma for 10 years and you got dropped into this world, you'd just be like, well, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. Here's a simple explanation as to why that doesn't make sense to me. It's this slowly trickling slope of, gender pronouns and trigger warnings, and then, I can change genders all the way down to a man, is breastfeeding a baby and they're writing stories about how important that is. It takes a while to get there, and it's like I'd imagine it's what it was like in the early stages of the Soviet Union or in communist China, where they just have to slowly eliminate common sense from modern thought until it's become so far over a certain amount of years that it's completely forgotten about. And what happens these days is that the media moves so fast, or 24-hour news cycle, as they call it. I usually give it a maximum 2. You might get up to 4 days, not including a weekend, though, of a story if it's hot. It really takes a concerned effort from media outlets to push a story like Donald Trump's indictment, or oppositely Hunter Biden's amazing business dealings, let's just say. It takes a effort from media outlets to consistently push a narrative. And what do they push a narrative on consistently? Men can be women, women can be men. And of course, every climate change, or those are basically the two big things that they push right now, because they have nothing else. Everything else has failed, and we thought we were kind of at a position where everything else has failed until the virus and the lockdown. So that's essentially where I think we're at, Eric.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning of that statement there about how you're not a doctor or you're not a scientist or whatever. And that's what they're gonna do with everything. I was watching James Klug, shout out James Klug, who posted a recent video of him in Philadelphia talking about the disgusting books that are in the school, which we of course have also covered ad nauseum. But there was one group of women, like old women, who are not navigating the landscape anymore. We're talking about old retired women, like no shade, but it's like you don't have to walk on eggshells at work. You don't have to worry about stuff. You just sit at home and knit or whatever, go to bingo or something, right? You don't have to worry about navigating the world as a working professional. But I said all that to say, they're at the point now where this woman is saying, well, you're not a trained librarian. So think about that. She wants a quote unquote trained librarian to be the one to decide whether books are appropriate for children. So the point is, it's like they come up with this completely random idea of academia, like a woman. What is a trained librarian? Is that even a real thing? I genuinely don't know. Like, you go to a librarian school, or is it just a job you apply for because you like to read books a lot? But the point is, they're always going to find some way to differentiate, like to make sure that Neyo, who is a family man, whatever, 40 years old, he's not qualified to talk about this because he's not a doctor or he's not a therapist or whatever. It's all completely ridiculous. And I'm looking, just a quick search on Neyo, and of course they're all running the same headline. I don't understand. Neo condemns parents who allow their kids to undergo gender transitions. Neo doesn't understand why kids are allowed to undergo gender transition. Neo condemns parents. It's all just the same. So, here's one. Yeah, Neo slams modern parents. Trigger warning. I mean, it goes on. This is just the first page. They're so outraged that Neo, who, if I'm 100% honest, this is not a shot at Neo. Like when I was a kid, I thought Neo was gay, but he seems to be pretty base, as the kids say.
Here's his response, which appears to be an Instagram post, but this is from that girl's Gloria Velez's Twitter feed at Gloria Velez
So
and
wait,
at
this is
Neo
her.
Compound.
This is her posting
her
a
sharing,
tweet
yeah,
of his Instagram.
yeah.
Okay.
First and foremost, I condemn no one. Who am I to condemn anybody? As you mentioned, that a couple of the titles said he condemned. Your life, your kids, your choice. I was asked a question, and I answered it. My opinion is mine. I'm not asking anybody to agree with me, nor am I telling you what you can and cannot do with your children. I stated my opinion on a matter, and that's that. Why should I care if my opinion upsets you when you don't care if yours upsets anyone? I think that's a really good point there. Opinions aren't special, he went on. We all have one. People voice them regularly, whether they're asked or not. I was actually asked mine. Agreeing to disagree is not a declaration of war. Y'all do whatever the hell y'all want to. But my feelings on the matter are mine, same way yours are yours. Meanwhile, I love everybody. Don't agree with some of y'all's ideals, but love you no less. Yeah, I mean, that's not an apology. He says, if I like the part where he says, if you don't care if yours upsets anyone, and that's pretty true. It's all about conforming to what this group of people, even at the largest numbers, Eric, for Gen Z, we have 20% of people, identifying as this, that, and
That's
the other.
fake.
It's Gen Z wanting to be special, right? But even if we took that as the greatest possible number, that's still 80%, 8 out of 10 people that disagree with that or don't choose to live their life that way. And I would wager that they don't believe that their children can be whatever they want. So he's not saying he apologizes. And I think on the spectrum, not to use a tired word of spectrum, of apologies and celebrity backtracking, this is pretty high up there in terms of sticking to your guns. I mean, I wouldn't have written that I love everybody because I don't just love people who have I don't just love people who want to mutilate children. I don't just love people that believe that you're being mean to your kid if
No,
you
I
don't
don't
affirm
love this
them.
guy at all. No.
But
Wait,
that's
so
where I stand on that.
that's fair enough. Which also reminds me of another Sunny episode where they're like, "No, dude, I don't know. I don't love this guy." But okay, yeah, that makes sense because I probably, arguably, I wish I could screen share, but I'm on my laptop. Anyways, TMZ writes, Neo condemns parents. Now I didn't watch the whole interview. I don't even know what consists of a of condemnation at this point in time. But yeah, all he said was, this doesn't really make sense. You wouldn't let him eat candy all day. Most people just go with the you wouldn't let him get a tattoo or you wouldn't let him smoke weed. But he has a very good point. Like he doesn't even have to go to booze or weed. You could literally you wouldn't even let him eat cookies all day. You know what I mean? Like cookies, candy, you wouldn't let people do that all day, but somehow they let them change their genders like that.
Turn it up, Jordan.